A warning for you first-time gardeners out there, you might not do well this year. Stay tuned, let me tell you why. Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk about gardening, and I've seen a lot of posts on social media, Twitter and Facebook, and a lot of you guys are seeing what's going on in the world today, and you're like, you know what, I've got to get that garden in. I've got to do, this year has got to be my year to put in a garden, because you're worried about food supply. You've seen some of these food lines that are in some of these cities where, you know, they're just not people are trying to get food and they can't get it. You've heard about the manufacturers, the meat producers, the growers of different foods, produce, things like potatoes and all kinds of things. And they're not being able to get their food to market because there's no market for them. Schools are shut down, lots of things are shut down right now, and so there's no market for a lot of their produce. And so they're having a hard time. And you're worried. You're like, you know what, I've got to get my seeds. And then you go to the stores, you go to places like Home Depot, if you're in places like Michigan and some of these other states where they're having some of these draconian laws being passed, or edicts, I should say, not laws, because they're just edicts, where you can't buy these seeds. You go to the store, you want to buy the seeds, and it's roped off. It's got this tape across, and you can't buy your seeds. They're not selling seeds, and so it's stressing a lot of people out. And I see a lot of people who are like, you know what, I've got to get that garden in, and you're stressing out about it, and I'm here to tell you, you might have a hard time. And here's why. Gardening is like anything else. It takes practice. It takes experience to learn how to do certain things. Experience, I say it all the time, wisdom comes through experience. Once you've experienced some things, you've had time to work at something, you get better with it. And gardening is no different. When it comes to gardening, it's taken me, you know, a good 6 years being here on this homestead. We've had a garden for 6 years. We're going on our 7th year now. And it's difficult. You encounter things like soil conditions and pest pressures and certain varieties of plants that do better than others based on your environment and climate. And so, you know, I'll give you an example. It took me a good 5 years or so to finally grow onions and grow them successfully. Year after year, I would plant onions and I would get no harvest. They would just die, you know, and I got nothing. And I tried different varieties and methods. I tried methods of people who grew onions in my area, and for some reason it just wouldn't take. And then one year, out of frustration, I decided I'm going to go ahead and try onions again, and I did it a little bit different. And I planted these onions, and I put straw over the top of the onions, of the soil that I placed these onions in, these onion starts, and boom, I had onions. And I had tried it this way before, but I didn't use straw to cover them up. And for some reason, for me, that was the thing that made the onions grow. And I know other people who've grown onions and didn't use straw, but they had great onions. It's just different. It's different for everybody based on the varieties of plants they're growing, the soil conditions, your environment, temperature, all that stuff. And so I finally figured out a way, and I did two years in a row. Last year I did a really good harvest of onions. The year before that I had a pretty good harvest of onions, and so I doubled my bed, my growing area, and I had great onions. But it took me like 5 years to figure that out. Wisdom comes through experience. Tomatoes, I grow about 60 plants a year because I know I'm probably going to lose, you know, anywhere from 15 to 25% of my tomato crop to pest pressures, to fungus, to there's all kinds of variables I can lose my tomato plants, you know, tomato hornworm damage, all kinds of things. And so I always plant more than I know I'm going to need. And if I grow a lot of more extra in abundance, and I have an abundance of tomatoes, great, I can share them or give them away or whatever. So all that to say, if you're a new gardener this year and you've never gardened before, get ready for some failures. A lot more failures than what you think you'd get. Just because you see other people growing gardens and having great success, chances are those successful gardeners have been doing it for years. And so what my message here today is to understand that you're going to have some issues, and that not to be frustrated with that. The time really to begin gardening was 3-4 years ago, okay? That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a garden this year. I'm just here to tell you that grow lots of different things and try to grow as many as you can, so that if you lose a bunch, if you lose over half your crop or more, you still got something. There's still something that you can pull out and put on your table, to eat. But I see this over and over again on social media posts, people who are saying, I'm going to get a garden in this year. This is the year I finally have to do it. I've got to do it, because they see the emergency, they see the situation they're in, and they don't want to be left out without food. And that's good. That's a good thing to have. But you need to have that every year. That's why I tell people, listen, if you're in a place where you don't have a big area for you to garden, get to a place, move somewhere where you can grow a garden. And that's been my message from the very beginning. Get out of the cities. Get to a place where you can grow a homestead. People who are into preparedness, who are into self-reliance, self-sustainability, when you push that to its logical conclusion, you come to a homestead. So here's what I'm going to recommend for you guys to do. Research varieties. Ask people in your area who are successful gardeners what it is they're growing, what it is they have the best success with. What are they doing to treat their soils? What kind of pest pressures can you expect to encounter? And then plan accordingly, but then still understand that you're probably going to have a lot of failure because you've never done this before. It's like anything. You get better with practice, you get better with experience. My first year gardening, I had an old timer tell me, listen, your soil is garbage. And it's true. The soil we live in the Ozarks, most of the soil is hard clay. It's full of a lot of rock, especially here in the Arkansas Ozarks. The Ozarks encompasses a large portion of southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, and parts of Oklahoma. And the soil conditions in a lot of those places are rocky, it's clay, so what do? This old timer told me, he said, Zach, what you need to do is find a whole bunch of rabbit manure and put it down for your first year garden. And even though you're going to plant in crappy soil, you're going to do well, because that rabbit fertilizer, that rabbit manure, does an excellent job of allowing your plants to get the nutrients it needs to have a successful first year. And then, as years progress, you can then continue to better your soil. You can add things like different manures, you can add different compost, you can use compost teas, and we did all that. We added sheep manure, we added some cow manures, definitely added rabbit manures. We used mushroom compost, which is made up of chicken manure, and we did composting as well. We used compost teas. Boogie Brew is one of the compost teas that I used often when I first started out, and saw phenomenal success because compost teas are great. But it's good at building your soil over the number of years. We also added things like worm castings, and we added things like red wiggler worms. We added things like coffee grounds. We save all of our coffee grounds here on the homestead and put those coffee grounds, every day I have my coffee, and I take those coffee grounds and I put it in a bucket. And then when the bucket gets full, we spread it on the garden. And we've been doing that for years. And the worms really love that coffee, just like you and I love that coffee. I hope you like the coffee. There's some weird people out there who don't like coffee, but I get it. Worms love the coffee, and when the worms love the coffee, they reproduce, and they leave their worm castings behind, which is their manure, and it really encourages growth in your garden. So that's over a number of years we have done this to promote a healthy soil and build a healthy soil. A soil where the microbes in it are alive and they're breathing and they're growing and they're spreading and they're allowing the root nodules of the plants to feed and get the nutrients that they so desperately need to produce a healthy crop. So, it takes time. It takes time. It also takes time to understand pest pressures. What are you going to do the first time you walk out to your garden and you look at your cucumbers and they're full of aphids? Do you know how to handle that? Do you know what you're going to do to deal with that? What are you going to do the first time you come out to your zucchini plants or your squash plants and you find it loaded with squash bugs? Do you know how you're going to deal with that? What about kale or potatoes? I mean, all of these plants have their own pest pressures. What about groundhogs? We've had groundhog issues. Different animals that come in and root up your garden. Things like that. There's always going to be things you're going to deal with, and you get better with dealing with those over time. Tomatoes. I have a whole video on tomato hornworms. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to know how we deal with tomato hornworms. You can watch that video. It's a very funny video.
Oh, look at that. It's a tomato hornworm. How are you today, Mr. Hornworm? Oh, not so good. For some reason, I have a splitting headache.
But, what are you going to do when you come out and, like, one day your tomatoes were great, and you walk out the next morning and, like, 4 of your plants are just leafless, there's no leaves on them at all, it's because you have tomato hornworms. What are you going to do about those? And if you plant 10 tomato plants and you lose 5, there's half your crop. That's why I plant 60. Because if I lose 10 tomato plants or 5 tomato plants, it's no big deal. It's okay, I still have tomatoes. But these are all things that you're going to have to deal with and learn about. So pest pressures, soil conditions, and varieties. Find the varieties that work well in your area. Talk to the old timers and see what grows well for them. And for instance, we had green beans one year. I grew string beans. Did not do good. And then I bought some seeds, I think from Baker Creek, of a bush bean variety. And the bush beans did fantastic. I had more beans than I could ever know what to do with. You know, it took a year of failure to realize, okay, this doesn't work, find something else. And so I got the green beans, the bush beans, I tried those and they did phenomenal. Okra, I've had great years with different types of okra, and I had poor years with different types of okra. You find the different plants that work well for you. Tomatoes is another one. The Arkansas Traveler is a very popular tomato in my area because it withstands the heat very well, and it produces a very good medium-sized tomato, you know, reliably. But some tomatoes you try to grow out here, they don't do so hot. I've tried to grow Romas before, and I haven't been able to grow Romas very well. I tried to grow big beef steak tomatoes, a couple different varieties of those, and they don't do very well. And people who fertilize their soil with chemical fertilizers and things like that, they can do that. But I'm trying to grow here with just a natural soil, using natural fertilizers, natural enhancements, soil enhancements, and so I have to find the varieties that work best for that. But it takes time, it takes practice. So keep in mind, plant varieties, soil conditions, pest pressures. If you're a new gardener, just understand that you may have issues. And if that's the case, it's okay. But see, you learn. You've learned. Now, if we're really at the collapse of Western civilization, like some people are saying that's going to happen, I don't know if that's true or not, but if we are, and you can't get seeds at all next year, because what you may have done well you may not be able to try a different variety because you can't get the seeds. It's important maybe to network with your other gardeners friends in your area. Get to know your neighbors, see what they're growing, and then maybe trade. The things you did do well in, learn this year how to save those seeds. Research right now how to save your seeds, how to save your tomato seeds, how to save your cucumber seeds, so you can use those seeds for those plants that did well for you, save them for the next year. Or maybe trade some excess that you have and for other varieties that maybe you haven't tried yet. So again, my message is simple. Wisdom is gained through experience. You need experience. You need to have some failures in life because the failures educate you on what works and what doesn't. And it's the same with anything, it's the same with gardening. I hope you guys have a great, successful growing season. If you're not out there planting a garden yet, go ahead and do so. And yeah, the best of luck to you. But plan and prepare now for the failures that you may encounter. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't leave here without liking and subscribing the video. Hit that little like button for me. I really appreciate that. That really helps us. Lets YouTube know that we're not as big a scoundrel as they think we are. And check out our sponsor at the end of the video because our sponsors are what make our videos possible. All right, guys, see you next time on Homestead. Hey, guys, I'm happy to introduce an American Homestead sponsor, Zervita Zeal. Now, first off, I only accept sponsors from products that I use and believe in. My family uses Zeal mainly because we want to ensure a healthy immune system. You see, it's made up of only whole food concentrates and includes no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. The included sweetener is all natural from fruit and the stevia leaf. It's gluten-free, it's vegan, and it's kosher. In 2018, my youngest son was involved in a bike accident that resulted in the surgical removal of his spleen, and that's an important part of his immune system. And because we live on a farm, you can guess that having a healthy immune system for our family is very important. Some of the included ingredients are beetroot, chicory root, turmeric, moringa, blueberries, cranberry, goji berry, milk thistle, ginseng, alfalfa, broccoli, and so much more. It's these natural ingredients that can easily be made into a powerful and tasty drink that my family can make and feel good about. So sign up and give it a try today. Every purchase you make goes to help the homestead so that we can continue to make great homesteading videos for you. Link is in the description below. Go ahead, give it a try. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.